So welcome. Again, my name is Michael Storr, and I work for the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, the Collaborative. And you're joining us today for the Youth Engagement Transition Initiative, or YETI, State and Local Professional Information and Outreach Session. For today's session, we're going to have a brief set of welcome introductions, and then go through, as part of the hour-long webinar, the goals of the NTEC Youth Engagement Transition Initiative, or YETI, and talk a little bit about the whys and hows of youth leadership and engagement. And we're going to get some feedback from you all regarding what's working where you live regarding youth engagement, youth leadership, youth self-determination. And then lastly, but perhaps most importantly, we want to put out a request for recruitment of students, youth, and young adults to engage in a session that we're going to be holding in September to start the Youth Engagement Transition Initiative that is going to help with the work that NTEC does. So to get us started, if you could, in the chat box, type your name, your title, your agency, and your state to let us know who's out there. And we're going to have some brief introductions from our panelists of youth, young adult, student experts. And they'll be talking more about themselves throughout the presentation, but this will just be a brief introduction. So Ev, why don't we start with you and go through?
Sure. Hi, I'm Everett Deibler, and I'm proudly from the state of Pennsylvania and happy to be here. I have been transitioning from being a young adult advocate or young professional advocate to adult ally, and have been really passionate about trying to create or establish a national youth initiative to bring youth voices to the table. And I'm really glad that NTEC has agreed to kind of help kick off the YETI and kind of get this started. And I'm glad to be sharing my perspective and story today.
Hi, my name is Katie Russell. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Texas. I am, compared to everyone else, relatively new to all the youth advocacy world in this sort of setting. I've been doing a lot of promotion via social media over my disability, but this is kind of my very first introduction into this sort of setting.
Hi everyone, Michael Scanlon here. I'm in Connecticut. I am so happy to be here today. I work as a youth coordinator for both Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center and Advanced Behavioral Health. And just thank you so much for being here. And I'll be pleased to talk about more of my story later as well.
And Amanda?
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm also from the state of Pennsylvania. I am 20 years old. I have been a little bit into youth advocacy and disability advocacy in the past couple of years, mostly through my major. I just received an associate's degree in special education, and I am currently going to attend Kutztown University in Pennsylvania to become a teacher of the visually impaired. Most of my advocacy work has been done with the Lehigh Valley Council of the Blind and this organization here.
Right. Thank you all, and thank you all for typing in into the chat box who is joining us today as participants. It's really great to see such a diverse group. So again, thank you, especially on this summer Tuesday in August. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn this over and start our presentation.
Sure. So one of the major things we wanted to make sure that we really hone in on today is, with all of you being here and kind of learning about our perspective on youth engagement, or what works and what the real youth perspective is, and then kind of taking that and maybe recruiting new young people to join the YETI. It really is, you really are providing support and opportunity that equals success. And one of the big things that I can say that I'll talk about, and I'll probably reiterate like 12 times while we're on this webinar today, is the importance of having the support of an adult ally or someone in a community that says you want to support and provide opportunities to a young person that will help them find their success and what it means. And I can honestly say that without the support and opportunities that I was given, I wouldn't be on this call today, and I would not be working and doing the things that I love doing today, working at a community college, supporting other students with disabilities to find their own success. So next slide, Michael. And one of the things Katie and I wanted to talk about a little bit as we really do get started into this is some misconceptions regarding young people. There are, and I'm not going to call anybody out on this call, but there are definitely some stereotypes regarding what young people feel and think regarding I would say in my experience, youth feel like adults think that they're inherently lazy, right? That they don't want to do something, they don't care. Okay, these stereotypes do exist. Okay, and as much as we try to keep them out of our mind, the reality is that is part of this. But I can tell you, having worked with, at this point in my career and time, thousands of youth, to me, it's all about how you frame conversations and the opportunities you try to provide to give those conversations to engage youth in a real way. Because one youth can have some investment, their attitude or things may change for what you're trying to show to them or illustrate to them in a conversation. So Katie, you want to do the next one?
Yes. Oftentimes youth are directly left out of these, conversations about things that may impact them, whether it be a 504 or IEP meeting. And often it goes back to these stereotypes that maybe these don't care nearly as much, or that they're a little lazy about this, and something that they may not understand. And even if, we're talking about a very young child here who may not understand everything, the fact that they are being left out of decisions that affect their lives and part of who they are is very, that's not going to be helpful for them in any sort of means. And you're making decisions about someone without even asking that person, maybe about their disability or something they may be struggling with, and just not including them in the spaces where decisions are being made means that they are not set up for any sort of success when it comes to advocating for themselves later in life.
And it really comes down to, what's that slogan? Nothing about us without us is the old disability rights slogan, right? And why would you talk about somebody and not allow them to be part of the conversation? And the younger, the better, right? I mean, that's what Katie kind of just said. The younger, the better. Even if the student or youth doesn't really understand everything, they should be in the room and be a part of the conversation whenever possible. And the last one, Michael. What are your perceived barriers in your role to meaningfully engaging youth? This is a big one. Okay, as professionals, a lot of times we perceive or there are actual barriers to how we can engage youth. Maybe it's the way things are structured at your organization. Maybe it's the perception of people that you work for. And I'm just being honest in that way. But you have to think about, as you're thinking about engaging youth and working with them, what are some of the barriers in your role that do not allow you to effectively engage youth, and try to work around those. Think about creative ways to remove those barriers. A lot of this, I think, in my experience, is about adults kind of having a shift in mindset and becoming a possibility thinker, or embracing possibilities more. And so it does kind of require adults or allies to be creative about ways to remove the barriers that exist in terms of the systems that you work within to engage youth in a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
So Katie, you want to tell your personal story, because I think it kind of relates to one of the things you just shared a lot.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with spatial motor dysgraphia in 4th grade. At the time, the state of Texas didn't really recognize that, and I was the first case of dysgraphia in my school district and in my school. And so they had really no idea what to do with me. Unfortunately, what that meant is that I was not included into a lot of conversations. My parents did their very best, but there's not a lot of support systems out there specifically for dysgraphia alone. So throughout middle school, I had a 504 plan. I was getting accommodations. I had very limited ideas of what that even was. I knew I had dysgraphia. only slightly though. And I knew I sometimes got accommodations, but I didn't even know technically that I had a 504 plan. I just knew that sometimes my teachers were like, oh yeah, you can use a computer for this. I was like, oh, cool. And it was not until 8th grade that I got my own computer. And I began researching, okay, what on earth is this dysgraphia? Like what is it? What are the things out there about it? Because I knew I had it. I didn't know anything about my disability. And I started doing research and learning a lot more, found out that, oh, I do have spatial motor dysgraphia, talking to my parents about it. And I started doing a lot of research and realizing that there was all these coping mechanisms that I had no idea about. And I became very entrenched into the world of disability that it is. And I learned about 504 and I started doing a lot of research on disability history. And I went up to my mom one day and I was like, do I have a 504 plan? She's like, oh yeah, yes you do. And I was like, I had no idea. And I demanded to be let into my 504 meetings. And freshman year was the first time I was ever in one of my 504 meetings. That was in 2017. And for the first time, years after I was diagnosed, someone asked me, what's dysgraphia like for you? What's the struggles that you are having? And I started getting accommodations that A, I knew about, B, that really helped me, and C, that I was not afraid to stand up for myself. I knew the legal terms behind 504, and I went from being about a B, sometimes A student, to I graduated with a 4.25 GPA, magna cum laude, and I'm going to college on a full ride, simply because I started including myself in conversations about 504. And that's so important. If I had been included from the very beginning, when I was in 4th grade, even if I had no idea what on earth 504 was as a young 4th grader, I might have been better off, and I might have, started my youth advocacy even younger.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry I was muted. So my story is a little bit different. And I told you that I am now kind of transitioning to being an adult ally. But how did I get to be that person and how did I get here? Basically, I was born with cerebral palsy. So I've been very aware of my disability my entire life. But my mother, who was a job coach and a job trainer for 35 years, just recently retired. My entire, I would say from 15 until I graduated college, I feel like everything we did was like a vocational assessment for me to learn about the kind of job I wanted, where I wanted to go, and what I wanted to do. The funny part is, though, that early on in high school and as I prepared for graduation, my mom basically told me to just go be a kid and not worry about all those meetings. And so my mom, being a job trainer, doing transition things, basically said, it's okay, we understand, and it'll be fine. Long story short, I ended up I researched one college and basically got into that college without really much fanfare or challenge, and then realized that I didn't want to be there anymore. And my mom, who I love dearly, and she would probably tell you that, she knows that I bash her when I tell these stories, but it's all love, right? But basically, when I said I wanted to come home or transfer schools, my parents didn't agree. And my mom basically said, you got to come up with your own plan if you want to do this. And I think she made the assumption that I was not going to actually come up with a real plan. So I will be forced to stay at the school I was at. And that's when I started to take ownership of my own journey as a student with a disability, as a freshman in college, in a place I didn't want to be. And so I ended up making a plan to make the transition, and really worked with agency partners that I didn't really know I had, but I found out about them and made all the connections, and was relatively successful in college and all through things. But where my love and passion for this comes from is that I have always embraced the fact that I'm a person with a disability, and trying to educate others, whether they be people with disabilities or people without disabilities, really helping them to understand each other and change perceptions and provide access and inclusion. And that's kind of driven my career. But I got involved in youth engagement, and that's what sparked that fire within me. Honestly, one of my friends from Pennsylvania was going to these conferences, and there were all these very cool looking people there. And I was like, hey, how do you meet all these people? What are you doing? And he said, you wouldn't really like this. You wouldn't get it. And I said, what's it about? And he said, it's this group in Pennsylvania that's all about transition and helping young adults learn from other young adults about the transition from high school to adult life. And that's when I said, well, my transition was not so good. And I don't want other people to have that same experience, the same experience I did. And so that kind of led me down this path. After I did my first conference, I was hooked on telling my story and supporting other young adults to make their dreams or their vision for their futures become a reality. And so this matters to me. And now being adult ally, I get to take what I've learned being supported by my allies in Pennsylvania and give it back to the community and grow more young leaders. And that's why YETI is so important as we try to get this started here with NTAC-C. So now I'm going to turn it over to Michael to talk about the ladder of youth voice.
Great. Thanks, Katie and Everett. And over to you, Michael.
All right, thanks so much. So I'm super excited that this slide was here as we were planning this and working out, because it's really a lot. So for only an hour, we're throwing a lot at you, but a lot of great things. And so I'm like super excited. I love this slide. I'm like Oprah, like my favorite thing, like the youth engagement ladder, right? So what I love about Heart's Ladder, that's what it's called, is I think of it as a really great reflective piece for me personally. And what I love about this is it's really useful, whatever your role is, whether you're an administrator, if you're someone who works with young adults directly. I really can't think of anyone in a human services applicable field that really couldn't benefit from this. You'll kind of see on the screen here, 1 through 8, the rung. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail on the next slide, but I would say truly the best way to think about this is an assessment of how you're doing, how you're engaging with young people. And so just off the top, like manipulation, obviously, no one wants that. Decoration, tokenism, we don't want that either. And so as we'll talk about later, we're really trying to hit the top of this ladder. And so Michael, if you can advance the slide, I can kind of work on the rest of that from the next slide. Thank you. And so you'll kind of see here, it's a lot on the screen, but it's helpful because, again, you want to avoid the bottom 3, just because, like, I don't have to really explain it, but it's not helpful. It's not moving young adults forward. You know, I can actually, to give some context to this, like, because some of it may be a little abstract for tokenism. What does that look like in the real world? Well, an example I went through was I was part of a conference planning series that really on paper was for young adults, but in the planning, things were last minute. There really wasn't any input from us available. So there was just a lot of the implementation really wasn't fabulous. And so like taking a step back and thinking about it, it really wasn't a great outcome. And so you'll see higher up on the ladder, youth informed, that's where young people inform adults in whatever capacity that is. Youth consulted, number 5. Adults actively consult young people while they're involved. I call this one like the yellow light, like the bottom 3 is red light, like it's a no-go, we're gonna avoid it. The yellow light, personally, this is just speaking as myself, I think it can be fine in certain cases. It's really almost like it's how you're doing it too. So like if someone told me, you know, if you're doing youth informed, youth consulted, not always bad. And I know this is a lot I'm throwing at you, and I think this is going to be another resource we can certainly talk about more at some point. We really are trying to hit the top 3: youth adult equity, completely youth driven, and youth adult equality, completely youth driven, and youth adult equity. And so some examples of that, I'm lucky to work with organizations that really embody that. And so I think what I also want to share is that it's not really about being perfect, it's about learning and growing. So I think just as I've had to learn and grow as a young adult, as a professional, I don't want this to seem punitive, you know what I'm saying? In the sense that it really is that learning and growing process. And so just some tips I have in my notes here. I think something really useful that I think would be helpful is for organizations, how do you implement this? Because I think there's a lot of great toolkits, but how does it not die on the vine, so to speak? So I think going beyond that, it's taking all of this, really being honest with yourself and the work you're doing, where are you at? So, and that's okay. And if you can sit back and think about, well, we had this project and, as a team or on your own, maybe you felt, it's tokenism and hey, we're learning and growing. Maybe you did a project and you're maybe at a 5 or 6. That's great. That's improvement, So I think it really is about, again, just that growing process. Sorry, here I have a bunch of notes. I'm like the master of notes here. I'm like, I want to hit everything in my limited amount of time here. I'm sorry. Yes, the last thing I want to kind of share on that is really have a set time in your work week to really implement that. Going over as a team, could that look like once a week? Could that be like internal, external, etc.? So next slide, Michael. All right, so a little bit about my story. So I know it's really hard to kind of share a lot about your life. That's really important, just a couple of minutes, but I really want to frame this in from the overview. I was thinking about an advocate here in Connecticut that had a quote that stuck with me, and she said, you can join the disability community at any time. And I find that really powerful because that's really what happened to me. So the beginning of my life was pretty normal. I have, parents that I love. I have siblings, typical suburban life. But when we were on a family vacation, when I was 4, I had a TBI. And so from that traumatic brain injury, my life really kind of became all about figuring things out. And, I had sensory issues, broke my jaw, relearning fine motor skills. Emotional regulation was, out of whack. So I think that there was that component right there, that early childhood trauma that really shaped how do I see the world? How do I see people? How do I see myself? A lot of the work that we do also, you'll kind of hear terms more on the trauma-informed lens. So I really approach youth engagement and my story from the point of, not what's wrong, it's what happened. And so you'll kind of hear me repeat that a lot in other presentations that I do. Again, it's not what's wrong, it's what happened. And then I really, the other part of my story that really shaped me was so getting support. My parents were great, and really, like you've heard, it's doing the best you can. There's no magic wand. There's no there's no one button to success, so to speak. But the other part of my story that really shaped me was really in middle school. It started, I had severe depression, anxiety, agoraphobia. So that really helped, that really, again, shaped how I saw everything. And so it was a struggle to really go to school, didn't really have any friends. My health was really poor. So I think by all these pieces, if you're seeing these things on paper, a lot of adults, professionals may think, ooh, I don't know, will this kid make it? Like, what's going to happen? Will he live independently? Will things work out? And so obviously they did. But so really the tying it up with a ribbon, so to speak, is it really is all about support. I can think name on top of my head, like there's a bunch of people that supported me, my parents, professionals, and the common thread all of them had in common was they really saw beyond the now. I have a quote that I kind of share sometimes is, your diagnosis is not your destiny, and so that's really powerful in that what I went through really shaped me and not really loving myself, not thinking I was good enough. I kind of also tell people, like, for that mental image, my experience is kind of like if everyone's life, you're like, it's a puzzle box, all your pieces. I felt like my siblings and other people I saw at school, they had their full puzzle box. They had all their puzzle pieces in a row, everything's matching together. I felt like I was a bunch of pieces short. It was all jumbled. It was really, I was trying to make sense of everything. And so there's a lot of struggle with that. But again, the key reason why we're really all here is it's really all about that support. So having people who could really help me see what's going on and how to really make things fit and working with me and really not doing things for me or at me. So I think I could keep going, but in efforts of time, I'm going to have to probably stop there. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. And I did just want to mention too, back on the slide when Michael was first introducing Hart's Ladder, there's a YouTube link. And when you click on it, it takes you to, it's a YouTube video, but it was done by youth and young adults involved in service learning. And it actually walks through in a lot of detail that Mike would have loved to have done today had we had 3 hours. But it's a really good overview. So check that out. And yes, I will try to put that into the chat. So just give us a minute to do that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move this over to Amanda. And Amanda, you're on.
So I mentioned before, my name is Amanda, and I am legally blind in both eyes. What this means is that I do still have some remaining vision. However, it is not enough vision to really be useful in many cases. And I was born legally blind, which is a huge factor in how I interacted with the world and with people who were trying to help me with my disability. Because, and this is in my own personal experiences, I've always thought there's a very big difference in someone who is born with a disability and someone who becomes disabled at some point in their life, just in your comparison of things. One of the biggest challenges that I faced and that other people who were trying to help me faced is that I couldn't tell them what I needed because I didn't know. A lot of people will ask me, and it's honestly one of the most common questions that I receive, is what can you see? And my answer, if I'm feeling particularly sarcastic that day, is I can see everything. And in my perspective, I can see everything because everything is relative. I can see everything that I've always been able to see since I was born. However, if someone with 20/20 vision were to look through my eyes, they'd go, this isn't everything. This is like nothing, because I just didn't know it was there. And if I didn't know that it was not there, I couldn't tell people. So I couldn't say, oh yeah, I didn't realize that you couldn't see this thing. I didn't know. My entire life is going through and finding out things that sighted people can see. I recently found out that the reason that people enjoy going to art museums is because they like to look at the brush strokes on painting, which I thought was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But, you know, I just didn't know that. I didn't know people could see that. And because of this, I couldn't tell people what I needed. And so they would, and when I was in school, I was the only blind person in my entire district. And they would ask me, what do you need from us? And I couldn't tell them. And frankly, they didn't know there was a problem because they knew that I had very limited vision, and it was really, we would work on it individually as a case-to-case basis. But I didn't get a 504 plan or services until I turned 16. And the only reason I was given services when I turned 16 is because I still remember this. I had gotten more than one concussion in my gym class because I did not see objects that were thrown and hit me in the head because I was not able to see them. And when we were signing up for classes for the next year, I had requested a adapted gym class. My guidance counselor called me in and told me that I was not eligible for this class because I was, quote, not disabled enough. What she most likely meant was that I was the only person in this class who had only a physical disability and not an intellectual disability. At the time, when I was about 15 or 16 at this time, I was not a confrontational person, and I was not very good at advocacy either. So I went home to my mother, who's a healthcare worker, and I said, Mom, I went to the guidance counselor and I told her what you said, and she said that I wasn't disabled enough. I have never seen my mother so angry in my entire life. She called the guidance counselor, and it's important to note my mother never changed her maiden name. She also has a doctoral degree. And so one of my favorite things to hear is, well, Mrs. Waldron, actually, it's Dr. Hare. And she basically calmly explained that, sure, if you think that it is best for my child to be placed in a regular gym class, you are more than welcome to do so. However, I am a medical professional, and if one more thing touches my child's head, I will sue you. that got them to act very quickly. And they ended up putting me in special education services. They gave me an orientation and mobility instructor who gave me a cane and taught me how to move around with it. But still, even with that, they didn't know what I needed. And at the time, I and my parents both did not know what services were available because they never explained them to me. And they just didn't really understand my vision. There was a lot of miscommunication. I ended up finding out a lot of stuff when I went to college because I majored at Lehigh Carbon Community College in special education. And in LTRI-C, I joined something called the Parkland Mentor Program, which is where us as college students worked with students from Parkland High School. And in this Parkland program, they had a transition fair where I spoke as to basically to give advice to people who are incoming from high school to college about what life is like in college as a disabled student. And when we were at this transition fair, I ran into the Pennsylvania Office of Vocational Rehab, and they work on a lot of transition services, and I was able to get connected with them, and they are currently helping me in my transition from LTRI-C to my next degree at Kutztown University. However, no one told me that OVR or any transition services at all existed until I got to college and ran into them myself, and I would never have run into them myself if I hadn't been a special education major and had all the things line up to put me in that situation. They should have told me when I was in high school, but unfortunately they did not. And I still face that challenge even now where there is a disconnect because if you work in a vocational rehab office, you may know that there is a timeline for things that you're supposed to do things. And a lot of it is supposed to start when you exit high school because it is transitionary services. And I didn't get that. So I'm on a weird timeline and I'm still struggling to work with them. But because of my experiences in high school with both my vision and transitionary services, that is why I am here doing what I'm doing today. Because of my experiences with transitionary services, that is why I'm here speaking to you today to try and change this and to improve this and add more of this youth-led advocacy into transitionary services. And because of my experiences as a legally blind student in school and the struggles that I faced with that, I am studying to be a teacher of the visually impaired. So that is kind of why I am here today. Michael, if you could advance to the next slide. So basically, I want to talk about the key components of a successful youth engagement. First, you have youth-driven and engaged youth in design, implementation, and evaluation. You also have offers a safe and neutral atmosphere and provides opportunities for youth to take the lead. It is very important when you are engaging youth that you are making sure that the youth are engaged. You want to make sure that your adult allies are remaining as allies and that they're letting the youth take the lead over the adults in the room, because you need to, when you're doing youth advocacy, you want to hear from the youth because that's who you're trying to get this information from. It also builds connections among youth across societal divides and provides youth with opportunities to build social capital. I have met so many amazing people because of my work in youth advocacy and just advocacy in general, and it builds so many amazing connections. You get to meet lots of new people, hear perspectives that you may not have heard before. So it's actually a really good thing for just youth and social skills and learning how to communicate in a professional way and with professional environments. It also combines learning and social action. Like I said, it's a great learning opportunity for students as well as teaching them how to advocate for themselves. As someone who's going into the education field, that's really important to me that we are teaching students how to be their own advocates. It also develops critical communication, coordination, collaboration skills, and leadership skills. Like I said, this is an amazing skill building opportunity. I've learned so many skills on how to communicate in professional ways with different professionals and professional people. I have, honestly, I would never have had those experiences and opportunities if I wasn't in this type of youth advocacy. It provides up-to-date information on issues critical to youth, and it honors the lived experiences of student, youth, and young adults. Something that you may have noticed is that when we are talking to you today, we have all been giving you our stories and our perspectives and why we are here today doing what we're doing. Because something that is very important in youth advocacy is rather than just looking at a PowerPoint as I'm showing to you right now and listing the reasons why this is all important. It's extremely important to hear from youth about their own experiences and to listen to them and say, hey, what's going on? What do you think we need to change? How can we change it? And to really listen to their experiences and the struggles that they have faced and what they think we should do moving forward. It also allows professionals the opportunity to genuinely engage the perspectives of youth to develop and implement resources, services, and activities. Like I said, it's this unique opportunity because let's face it, a lot of people who, as you age and you get more into the work that you do, especially in vocational rehab and all those services, you do get older. And as you get older, you get less connected to what youth are facing and the struggles, basically what's current, what's going on. I'll even say myself, like some things that I've changed or that have changed that I have not been quite up to date on, and I'm only 20, and it's constantly changing. And so by having these adults working directly with students and having students lead things and youth lead things, you're really providing this opportunity to connect and continuously be in the loop, so to speak, about what's going on and what needs to be worked on and what needs to be changed and what is working. So we have practical application of youth leadership. There are a number of practical ways to engage youth in leadership activities in your communities. And there is no real one way. There are so many different ways you can engage youth, and you can engage them as multiple, or you can do a single one, you can do multiple different ones. You have planners, educators, consultants, board members, decision makers, and policymakers. Planners, you can plan things, kind of what we're here doing now with you. We are planning for a future meeting and we are speaking to you guys first. Educators, I'm going into the field of education. We're also here to explain our experiences and educate people on things that they may not have known before. Consultants, we're consulting with NTACT and working with them and on what needs to be changed. Board members, I was a board member and an executive board member of the Lehigh Valley Council of the Blind. I provided a unique opportunity because honestly, most of the people in the Lehigh Valley Council of the Blind, I think the youngest person who wasn't me, who was a visually impaired person, was about 40, I think. Maybe she might have been a little bit older than that. I was the youngest by a long shot, and I definitely provided a different perspective for them as someone who is significantly younger than most of the people there. You have decision makers. This honestly gets a little bit older is when you are able to get into law and stuff, but even as you're younger, you can still help with making decisions, and then also policymakers and talking to policymakers about certain things that are going on. There's a lot of bills that are being passed all the time where you can talk to them and invite them into your space to meet with you and explain your side of things, what you think needs to be changed as a youth advocate.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate it, and especially your personal story. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Everett.
Awesome. So really, I told you all, I keep saying this, that the transition from becoming an adult ally really is having a change in mindset. As educators or service providers, oftentimes you feel like you're driving the boat or you're driving the car and you really want to be supporting someone in doing what they need to do. I know there's a lot of things that paperwork that must get done, boxes that may need to be checked. But the reality is, if you're an ally to someone, you're not driving, you are supporting someone. You want to go from I teach you something to we learn together. This is a big one, okay? Learning together and get that having that perspective or that change in mindset can really help you get to know your youth and kind of bring down that wall of teacher student, okay? Because there is a time that you need to be a teacher or educate a young adult about what their options are, what they need to do, maybe what you're thinking, all those things. But the learning and growing happens together, right? And a lot of times, again, with that whole let's just check a box or let's do this because we have to, it's almost easier, right? If you don't have the adult ally mindset to say you'll just do something to make it easier. But if you take the approach of you can do it and I'm here to help, it puts the focus on the youth being the one in the driver's seat, right? So it's all about changing your mindset, okay? But again, as an ally, there are times that your knowledge and skills are valuable to young adults that you're supporting, okay? But there's a way to provide that information that allows the young adult to kind of be the one that's in control with your support and guidance. Go on to the next slide, Michael. When you're looking at what does this mean for you as a professional, when you really, truly, honestly engage youth as an ally, people have said that youth keep adults honest, right? And then, you've learned things, and then they'll challenge you to consider innovative solutions. I think Amanda just said it. She's part of a disability organization locally in her community, and there's a lot of adults that have a lot of information to give her, but she gave new perspective and new thought to things they were doing, right? So being open to this is a challenge, right? Because sometimes as an adult, maybe you're a parent at home, you're used to being a guardian or a mom or a dad, right? Or you're used to being in that teacher role, and it really is tough. But if you look at it that young adults can keep you honest, can give you new things, can help you learn things, and help you grow, and you're helping them grow, it changes your perspective, or again, your mindset on what this means. Go on to the next slide, Michael. So, and this is kind of giving kudos to young people, right? But the reality is, this is a quote that basically says that if you really think about it, youth can teach you just as much as an adult, right? If you're open to. So I don't really want to need to read that quote too much. I want to give enough time to the rest of what we have to do, but just know, but again, this is changing your thought around the fact that you can be taught something by a young person you're working with. You just have to open yourself up to it. Go ahead, Michael. So here's what an adult ally, I think, believes, right? That you have confidence in youth, that you presume competence for them, and that you are truly sharing power, okay? Sharing power. Amanda and Katie and Michael kind of all address this a little bit in their story, that when you get investment from young people, when you allow them to share the power, or they can see that their opinion matters, that every opinion counts, that what they say holds value, it makes a difference, and everybody has something they can offer, some strengths or talents they can offer. But as adult allies, you can create that safe space, create those boundaries, let young adults know what the resources they have available to them are. Maybe what you're looking for as an organization or district or agency. What kind of things are you looking for? But then it's about letting the youth kind of grow and having confidence in them to deliver what you ask them to, while supporting them through that process. Go ahead, Michael. I think this is my last slide, right? But really, again, it's a partnership. A young person should see an adult ally as a person who always has their back, but also knows when to back off, so that the young person knows they can do anything. This is a very delicate balance, and I can honestly say it is a challenge for me making this transition from a youth leader or a young adult leader to an adult ally, right? Because we care so deeply for the people that we're working with that sometimes it's hard to back off on a decision that you might not agree with, on things that are happening, or maybe it's a activity that you would say, well, I'm not sure if this is going to work out or not. But if it does, that's great. But again, it's knowing when to back off and giving them that dignity of risk, and allowing them to try things, but in a space that is safe, where nothing catastrophic is going to occur. But the fact is that they can try something and learn from those things, because we all learn from good things that happen and the failures that we have throughout life. Go ahead, Michael.
Great, thanks, Everett. And I think we're going to turn this over to Katie again. So Katie?
Yeah, so often when young people are involved with this sort of stuff, it's so often that we are just like placed as this like token, kind of speaker or the one youth on a board of a bunch of adults. And what that does is it creates this kind of like culture of like almost just like applauding at, oh, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your ideas and your story and things like that. And everyone will get up and applaud the youth who speaks at an event or something like that. But no one will actually stop and consider what the youth is actually saying because they are a youth. And that creates this idea that like, even if youth is going to get involved with something, with some organization, whatever it may be, get involved in youth advocacy, their ideas are not ever going to be considered to the same weight that these adult ideas may be. It's just going to be, oh, look, we have youth on this board. Look at you go. Like, they have, look at them. We're so inclusive. But do anyone actually listen, or does anything actually change when we tell you, here's what's happening to us right now? Does anything actually change, or you just kind of brush it off? And that's one of the biggest like barriers, in my opinion, of to youth really learning to advocate for themselves, is that they don't feel heard, because every time they do go and advocate for themselves, everyone just kind of gives them a nice clap, talks about how brave they are, sharing their stories, but no one actually takes a moment to think about it and pause and reflect on what actually just happened, what they shared, and their involvement in whatever it may be.
Great, thanks, Katie. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Michael.
All right, yes. So I'd love to kind of take a minute now. If anyone wants to type in the chat, what's really working in your work that you're doing? So I know, Michael, do you think we have time for like one or two people to jump on and say something, or do you
Sure,
think
we certainly could. So if folks
Sure.
want to go ahead and just type in the chat, and we'll see what comes in, and we'll call in a couple. So what's happening that's really working well where you are? Don't be shy.
And while we're waiting, yeah, you've heard a lot on like connections, skill building, learning, growing, partnership, change process. I think that's really true. I'm here. It's just really is all about enabling and adapting and embracing change and being okay with things being messy at times, but we're all moving forward together as partners. I'm hearing youth-led meetings, and you're all great with the chats, by the way. I'm loving how engaged you all are for this, because I've certainly been part of some presentations where the chat box is crickets, so thank you. I'm seeing everything from regional student advisory committees. That's awesome. Relationship building, as we've heard, that's great. Youth state councils, that's so awesome to have that embedded in state government. That's great. Seeing newsletters, youth expression. These are really great and all on target. So thank you all for sharing. And you're also welcome to, if you have more questions or things you want to know too, I'll try to, corral some of these for later on, but any feedback, comments is also welcome. Mentorship, that's a huge one. Yeah, I love mentorship. That really goes back to the partnership aspect that you're really all hearing about today.
I see, Michael, you got a shout out too, my friend.
I know there's so many kind of coming, and I'm trying to. It's
yeah.
awesome.
I'm sitting here watching them all go by, like, wow.
Awesome. No, thank you everyone for being so generous with your comments and outreach. This is awesome.
Well, and Michael, I just want to say too, because I think it kind of reiterates Michael going over the Hearts ladder, and how I like how you said red light, yellow light, green light, right? Mm-hmm. All of these are somewhere in the yellow and green area. So, mm-hmm. and I think that as you take steps and make small moves up the ladder, that's great. And don't ever see that as you're not doing enough, or you need to do more. It's like Michael said, it's a journey, right? It's all about a process. Mm-hmm. You're learning and growing through all of this. So it's really, really great to see all the things that are being done.
Mhm. And Everett, to kind of jump off what you said, it's really about the why to like behind the decision making, being transparent. Oh, we're doing this, and here's why we're doing it that way. So thanks for that.
And we did have a couple of folks ask. We will be taking what's in the chat and what's happening in your various states and your local areas. We'll put that in a document that we can post along with the PowerPoint and the recording from today. So if you get a chance, there's a lot of stuff being posted, but we'll be sharing that out with you because it's really great.
Well, and Michael, I see someone just said they're going to use this webinar with their youth state council. We would love to have a member from your youth state council consider coming to the YETI event in September and maybe joining the work that we're doing. It would be great to see more young adults join the work that we're doing.
So Everett, is this a lead into the next slide? And
I guess it would be to Amanda, I guess, right? I was trying to do a slick segue to the next slide. But
hand off. Okay.
So we have kind of, you guys are telling us what's working for you. And as we are discussing both challenges, we're also discussing what's working. And it seems like a lot of you actually have your own state youth-led organizations of some sort or another. What we're looking for moving forward to the next meeting is basically youth advocates or people who may want to be youth advocates. We're asking for you guys to go and reach out to the organizations that you have, these youth-led organizations, or perhaps even other places. I don't think I haven't really mentioned how I met Everett. I ended up meeting Everett through my college, and actually really the first time we met was I was doing a presentation for one of my professors and he happened to be in the room. And then we later kind of engaged more through the Parkland Mentor Program, and we would meet one-on-one and just discuss disability advocacy and special education and what was working and what wasn't working. And so he actually found me through the college and not through any advocacy organization. So you may just have students or youth that you can find in random places. We are again looking for a diverse group. So people of all disabilities, races, ethnicities, genders, all that sort of thing. Even here today, we have a very diverse in level of experience. We have, Everett, who's becoming an adult ally, and then Michael and I, who have a little bit more experience as compared to Katie, who I kind of dragged kicking and screaming into this with me. But so really, we're looking for you guys to take this and we have the link here that you can, and we'll also post it in the chat, that you can send to these youth advocacy organizations that you have and any youth that you may think may be a good fit, and just invite them to come to this meeting and speak with us and see if this would be something that they're interested in. Maybe ask them to bring a friend, because that's, like I said, that's kind of how I got Katie into this. Was I'm more into youth advocacy, and Katie and I have spoken on a couple different platforms, but I've seen the work that she's done on social media, especially advocating for her disability and the things that she's experienced. And I was like, you'd be a really cool youth advocate. And I kind of dragged her down with me. But so we're just asking for you guys to basically just reach out and see who would be interested and invite them to join us.
Well, and Michael Store, I'm seeing people ask about age requirements and flyers and all that stuff. So I don't know if you want to address some of that.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do that as a group. This was the kickoff for really looking at YETI. And I think Michael, Katie, Amanda, Everett, let's get together again and we can get something posted for y'all. And the September 15th event, we will have posted on our NTAC website as well as in our email blast. So look for that. So there will be additional information, but you can share the link that we just gave you too. And with that, I don't know, do you all have any other comments as I'm going to go ahead and move into some of these resource slides that we have. So we did want to share with you, and these are additional resources, and they actually came, there was a gentleman, Adam Fletcher, that created it's a website as well as a program called freechild.org. And he took the concepts of Hart's Ladder and he turned them into the resources that you see on the next several pages. In planning this and working with Michael, Everett, Amanda, and Katie, we really felt these were helpful for folks. So these are hyperlinked when you do get the PowerPoint. And they really do address a number of things, including diversity of youth voice, new roles of youth voice, how really to best engage youth in those areas that we've been talking about throughout this webinar. So again, those resources are there and they're all hyperlinked. And with that, we really do thank you for participating. I'm not sure if there's any final questions.
Michael, I saw that someone asked about Katie's social media stuff. They want to know where they can find it.
Okay, Katie, over to you.
All right, the answer to that would be TikTok, actually. I just started making some stuff ages ago, and it kind of really hit off. A lot of people, I've never met another dysgraphic person besides my younger brother in real life. And suddenly there was a whole bunch of folks who were like, yo, wait, I have dysgraphia. I've never heard someone else also having it. And so it's on TikTok. My username is Katie with a C if you're interested. But I do a lot of talking about dysgraphia, my experiences with it, a lot about the accommodations I have, and all that sort of stuff.
Katie and I actually met through TikTok, and I've seen a lot of the stuff she's done on there, and she is an amazing job and does a really good job at explaining things. That's why I kind of dragged her down with me. She's very professional and very kind. She ends up engaging with a lot of parents, a lot of other students, just people who are genuinely curious. She does occasionally engage with some people who are a little bit less educated on the matter and not quite as nice about it, and she handles it in a very professional way. So this is just me. Katie's an awesome person, but
you're very sweet, Amanda.
So any other just final questions, or I'll just turn this back over to Michael, Ev, Amanda, Katie, any closing thoughts?
Looking forward to getting started with everybody. I mean, we had fun doing this, and we look forward to the next step. And thank you, Amanda, for coming to the Parkland program so I could find you and bring you to NTAC and help you, I guess, help you get opportunities. I don't know.
Thank you for kind of having me there. It was an amazing experience, and I'm really sad that it ended up getting cut short because of the pandemic, but it was an awesome learning opportunity and I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah.
So a quick question came in with TikTok, and they just put Katie in the search, and will you come up?
I will come up if you just put Katie. I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of Katies on there, and I've had several videos, lots of views. So, and if you just check out the dysgraphia tag, you'll find me very, very fast.
Yeah, I'll type it, and I'll type your username. It's Katie with a C.
With no.
Oh yeah, no, the actual username is Katie with a C.
With a C. Yeah.
The name starts with a C.
Alrighty, with that, thank you all so much. As I said, we will be posting this information on the NTAC website. Please get the information out to students, youth, young adults that you know to join in the September 15th webinar. That's the next phase of kicking off YETI with NTAC. So thank you all. Thanks again to Katie, Amanda, Michael, and Everett, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks,
everyone.